HODL the Bitcoin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BTC Sessions. I've got a special guest here today, John Constantine. Saying that right, I believe. And we're going to be chatting about a bunch of stuff. But John, I'll let you do a quick intro of yourself. Let people know who you are, where to find you, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm John Constantine. Pleasure to be on here. Really cool to be on your show. You were actually one of the first few guys when I got into Bitcoin that I started learning from and gaining some wisdom from. So I've been in the space since about mid 2017. And unfortunately, I heard about it a long time before that. And I didn't understand it. I had, questions about the idea made sense. I didn't think it was possible. So I didn't really do too much digging, but I've been in Syria since 2017. And basically I'm just a big fan of it. I spend my time researching it, studying it, investing, and that's where I'm at today. My biggest focus is I really care about the culture in the community. So ever since I got in, I've tried to think about what can I do to help the community and what can I do to give back. And I'm not a programmer, a developer, as much as I'd like to do all that cool stuff. My thought was, well, what can I do that's relevant in the space? And since I've started interacting with people on Twitter, Instagram, and just getting involved in the community, I think I've realized that that's almost more important nowadays than the developing side, because I think a lot of the really heavy lifting has been done already on that side. And now the question is just where are we going to take all that technology and what are we going to do with it? And so, yeah, that's me. That's my short story.
Awesome. So you reached out to me and you wanted to talk about kind of segue into something specific, which is actually, I find quite relevant right now. There's been using the word dip is probably putting it lightly. There's been a drop in price as of late. And so when you reached out to me, you were like, hey, I think we could have a good conversation about the supply of Bitcoin and what that does to price in the short term and long term, and kind of how that's affected. So, I mean, I guess I'll let you start jumping off and then we can just kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And yeah, it's definitely been an interesting ride. I think it's funny that it seemed like we're getting bored for a couple of months, and some people were kind of hoping and praying for some action, and I think we got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, something that I've been thinking about, well, actually for a really long time, is just this idea of understanding how market price or market cap, liquidity, and asset price all tie in together. And I know we talk about the fact that Bitcoin's low liquidity, cryptos, there's not only is it a small market still, but that market, even a smaller amount is available. And I think what I really want to talk about and what's been bouncing around my brain is just how small that available supply really is. So I think there have been a lot of projections about where the price is going to be, and obviously that we can only speculate on that. But when you're trying to project a price, you look at the asset, you look at the market cap, and you figure how much money is it going to take to get that price, right? So there's numbers, a good round number that's thrown around is $100,000 Bitcoin. Is that possible? When will that be? And so if you do the math on the traditional math on what it'll take to see $100,000 Bitcoin, well, you say there are 21 million Bitcoins, a little over 17 have been mined. So you've got 17 million Bitcoins. So it would be intuitive to think that you need $1.7 trillion market cap to see $100,000 Bitcoin. And so I think when people are trying to make price projections for the future, that's what they're looking at. Well, are we really going to get an extra over $1.5 trillion into the market? Like, that seems like a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And the thing that has always been in my mind that I think is worth considering is that even though the available supply or the circulating supply of Bitcoin is 17 million, there really aren't 17 million Bitcoins circulating out for you to buy. Like, if you wanted to go buy 17 million of them, you wouldn't be able to do it. So kind of common knowledge that supposedly around 4 million of them have been lost potentially. Mm-hmm. So that brings you down to 13 million. But then even beyond that, you have to think how many people are actually going to be willing to sell. So if you look at the wallet distribution, and it's hard to tell all of them, which are exchanges, which are individuals, which are groups. But if you look at the wallet distribution, the vast majority of Bitcoin are allocated to a few large wallets, or several thousand large wallets. If you're someone who has a ton of Bitcoin and you've been holding it for years, right, you have far more than you need to live off of. You've gone through several highs and several lows. Now here we are at the end of 2018, the price starts coming back to 10, 15, maybe 20,000. Are those people really going to start selling off their crypto? Like, are they really going to start selling off their Bitcoin? So if you look at the circulating supply of, which we figured is 13 million, how many of those are actually up for grabs? And I think when you look at how many wallets are old wallets, how many wallets are large whale wallets that aren't selling a lot, or some of them, they're selling the high and accumulating more on the low, how many of those are actually going to be available when the price starts to come back up? And, at what point? So I think I'm pretty comfortable making a guess that maybe between 2 and 5, maybe 7 million will actually be Bitcoin that people are willing to sell. I know for me, I can speak for me personally, that from here on out, I'm probably not going to be selling much Bitcoin, And
yeah, me as well.
Like if you've been in, I think you've been in a lot longer than I have. But
About 2014.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, like, it's full on accumulation. I mean, for a lot of the really diehard people in the space, the idea is when it's time to sell your Bitcoin, you won't have to, because you'll actually just be spending it. So I think a lot of people that really are into the space and are really accumulating understand that as we go forward, there are going to be a lot less, not only available in the total supply, but just a lot less people wanting to sell them. So if you take, say, 2 to 5 million, that's just a wild guess. I mean, I think the daily circulation right now is 1.5 million, but now that's not 1.5 million unique Bitcoin. That's 1.5 million total circulation that's being run through the exchanges.
Yeah.
So say, I don't know, if 2 to 5 million is a conservative guess, how much money then would you need to see $100,000 Bitcoin? And you're looking at 200 to 500 billion. So let me double check. 200 to 500 billion new dollars in. But now the market cap would reflect higher, because the market cap is still measured off of, because we've seen a $500 billion market cap already. So we're at like 78 billion now. But so the market cap would reflect much higher, but the actual capital inflow is significantly less than people think it is.
Yeah. So I mean, like when you talk about market cap in relation to the actual price of the asset, like you were saying earlier, people tend to do the simple math. They tend to say, oh yeah, well, there's this many Bitcoin, this is the price per Bitcoin, this is the market cap. And I mean, technically at the time, that's how somebody would calculate the market cap of, okay, this is how many there are, and so on and so forth. But people don't realize, okay, let's say we have $100,000 Bitcoin, and the market cap of Bitcoin is 1.7 trillion. Then you wouldn't be able to sell each Bitcoin that exists for $100,000. You could only sell so many at that point before the price starts going down, and vice versa. You can only buy so many at the current market cap and price before that price starts to increase. So people don't recognize the difference between market cap and what you can actually sell Bitcoin at or buy Bitcoin at based on how much money you have. Like if you wanted to go buy $1 million of Bitcoin right now in a single buy order, especially in Canada, because we have lower liquidity here. If you went to go buy $1 million, well, you're going to move the price of Bitcoin by dropping $1 million on an exchange and trying to buy there, because there's not as many people wanting to sell, and you'll burn through all the people selling at a lower price, and then you'll be forced to buy from people that don't want to sell for such a cheap price. So you don't get as many Bitcoin as you plan on.
Right. Yeah, and that definitely it goes both ways, kind of like you're saying on the sell side, it goes both ways. When you see drops in the price, like we've had recently, is that yeah, when you go to sell it, the price is gonna drop quicker as well. So that's crypto though. That's what we're in. Those are
Yeah.
the markets we're in. So yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of people are in it is because of the volatility. But it
Yeah.
gives so.
And so over time, then, how do you see that evening out? Because as more capital flows into Bitcoin and stays there, then that means that there's more liquidity, there's more readily available Bitcoin. And does that reduce the volatility of the price?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think the big question is, what is Bitcoin at that point? Because right now it's kind of a store of value and largely a speculative instrument. So the goal, I think, for most of us and for the original code itself is to be used as cash, to buy and sell things with. And so naturally, as more money comes in and basically you're working with, say, you have less Bitcoin for your money, basically, but there's more money in the system, that's going to reduce volatility. But the other thing is, if it's actually being used as cash, which is something a lot of us are really hoping for, is to see a replacement of the standard money system, that's going to increase the velocity of Bitcoin. So there's going to be a lot more circulating around, and when your circulation is huge because people are spending it, it's going to be a lot easier to get Bitcoin and to get rid of it without affecting the actual price.
Mhm.
So that's looking in the long term. I think we're still a ways away from seeing it used at Walmart and Starbucks. But when it does get to that point, that's a scary thought now because it is so volatile. But when it gets
Yeah.
to that point, that will reduce a lot of it. And but yeah, I mean, it just depends how it's being used. And I'm definitely on the side. I really hope to see it used as currency.
Yeah,
That's
I
why I'm
and
here.
I think that's the grand vision for everybody. I think some of the, we'll say, animosity between say like Bitcoin supporters or Bitcoin Cash support, whatever that's become now, um, between big, the people that are more concerned about transactions per second right now, they want everything to be cash right now. They want a replacement for cash right away. It seems to me, and me personally as well, that Bitcoin, I guess Bitcoin maximalists, more or less, right now, are more concerned with the establishment of Bitcoin as an actual store of value first, so that you have that solid value layer, and then it achieving currency status with these additional layers after the fact. But they don't want to sacrifice that sound money, censorship resistant kind of layer first. That's the priority for them, from my perspective, anyways. And I guess I could say that because I am kind of, I'd say, a Bitcoin maximalist, anyways. But yeah, it's interesting to see, because even early on, I was using Bitcoin as a transactional method. I still do from time to time, if it's more convenient to me than using a debit card or something like that. So like online, for certain instances, or if there's somebody that's in the community that I really value their work and I want to tip them, or if I want to buy something from a merchant that's supporting Bitcoin, I will do that. But I also am in a mode of, I want to try and conserve my Bitcoin, because I think we're witnessing this like monetization event, and that this is only going to happen once, and so you only have so much time to accumulate during that phase. And so right now I try not to spend it, because I think that'll be counterintuitive, because I will be able to spend it later.
Right. Yeah. And at that point, it will be easier to, earn more as you're spending it, and kind of keep things like a normal cash flow budget.
Mm.
But yeah. One thing I kind of want to say, out publicly, because I've heard the opposite said, and I don't think it's true, but I've heard some people saying that those that are with the smaller block size, and not to get into all of that because I'm all for unity, But just the idea that those that want smaller blocks don't want it to be used as cash. And I don't think that's true at all. Like I think like you said, like we're worried about maybe other things first, security and store value, but the end goal is still to use it as cash. So that's one thing, I try and say every opportunity I can get is that I still want to see Bitcoin used as cash, not just as digital gold.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's 100% my position as well. I'm not saying nobody should ever use this as cash.
Right.
I tend to lean towards prioritizing keeping the base layer as decentralized and accessible to everybody as possible. And and part of that, I think, is making it easy to, run nodes and do stuff like that, and not pushing those responsibilities onto trusted third parties. And so if we can maintain that kind of ease of use for regular people that want to run a copy of the blockchain, then I'm all for us implementing systems that allow us to use it as cash too. So
Right.
yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that I have a brand new website up, btcsessions.ca. And what is the purpose of this website? Well, I have a lot of free content, a lot of free shit on my YouTube channel, and hopefully that's been very helpful for you. But if you find that there are some concepts that you can't quite wrap your head around, perhaps you just need the comfort of somebody looking over your shoulder saying, yes, you're doing that correctly, or maybe you just want to discuss some concepts that maybe you don't have anybody to discuss them with. I am offering services where people can book me online for appointments if you like. So if that's something that interests you, please head over to btcsessions.ca and you can reach out to me there. As always, thanks for watching, and let's dive back into the video. So what I'm curious right now is looking at what the the price has been doing the past week or so. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of panic from some people, a lot of capitulation, people getting angry, especially crypto Twitter is a salty place right now. And
I've been kind of avoiding it a little bit.
yeah. So, but I mean, it's this weird dichotomy because you see some people that got in that are pretty new to everything, that are basically middle fingers in the air saying, screw you guys, this is a Ponzi scheme, I'm out. And then you see others that got in even at the same time that are completely calm, that are pretty level-headed and don't seem very I mean, it obviously sucks whenever the price goes down for everybody, but they don't seem to be panicked. What do you think the calm people are privy to that everybody that's capitulating is not? What do you think is driving these emotions on either side?
Yeah, I think my assumption has just been that it's just the level of research and understanding of what we're actually in, because I think for sure a lot of people got in and didn't really understand what they were buying into. Like back in the day when I first heard about it, I didn't understand it. I didn't really know more than it's this digital internet money. And I'm like, that sounds weird. Like, can't people copy that? And, but since everyone else is making money, I think a lot of people were at that spot and they just decided to invest in it anyway. They didn't really understand what it is. They didn't understand the purpose that it served, and probably don't understand the potential that it has, like the opportunities and what markets it can take over. And I think that would probably be the largest part of it, is people just not understanding. The other part is just having control over your emotions, because that's like the biggest thing. I'm not really a trader. I did some, but the biggest thing about being a trader and investor is keeping your emotions out of it. And I think different people are just at different points of being able to control their emotions. And, I've had tons and tons of thoughts about how, man, I mean, I thought it'd be back by now. I thought the price would go up by now. I didn't think the bear market would last this long. And then you've got, especially tomorrow, how many people are going to probably consider getting out of it tomorrow at Thanksgiving when they have to face their families and talk about how bad Bitcoin's doing. Like those moments, like, they affect everyone. And I have friends that got into it. I had been telling them about it for a little while, and they didn't get in till December and January. And I feel bad, but I'd been saying it for a while. But now I've kind of got them looking at me, and it's like it's easy to think, well, maybe I was just wrong about this, because none of us want to be the fool that invested in something that didn't go anywhere. But I think for me personally, life is about finding opportunities, taking risks, but managing those risks. And every now and then you make mistakes, and I made plenty of mistakes, but the good ones balance out the bad ones, and you learn to kind of check your emotions at the door. So that's kind of my assumption. I don't know if you have any other observations about why.
Yeah, I again, speaking to your idea of people that have been actually researching and trying to understand how this thing works, as opposed to the ones that just jumped in because they saw a price moving upwards and then did no reading beyond that, including after the fact. I think that's kind of a key driver for what really makes somebody what forms their reaction to these crazy price swings. Because I mean, Bitcoin is no stranger to this kind of stuff. Sitting through 2014, 2015 was long and tiring and awful at times. But I mean, the more you keep your thumb on the pulse of what's actually being built in the meantime, these bear markets can really be a conduit through which you can learn a lot, because when there's not the daily noise of new all-time high, of look at the crazy markets, look at all these other coins that are the next Bitcoin, look at all these other things that are happening, then you can really hone in and say, okay, how does this work? How are these other things that are being worked on going to complement that and make the value proposition even better? And I think the people that are still here, the people that are watching this interview, when I throw it up on my channel, the people that are sitting and still watching and still learning, you guys have a fantastic opportunity to actually take a breather from the daily price I guess orgy that happens on stuff like CNBC and all that crap when it's pumping every single day. And you have this opportunity to actually start learning and understanding, why was this thing invented in the first place, and is that goal still being worked towards? Because I think if you look deeper, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely, even for me, like earlier this year, I kind of backed off from the internet presence for a while, and kind of no one had heard from me. And I think people were wondering, like, is he still here? Did he get out or whatever? But really, I was just taking advantage of the opportunity to really start researching and learning more. And, there was no panic selling going on or anything for me. It was just, let me take this time of peace and quiet. Like you said, like last year, there were so many scams and so many, so much hype, and it was just kind of hard to see what was actually going on. And now you kind of see the projects that are still around and still working on something real.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, we've got it's still a ways out, but in 2020, we've got the halving, where the issuance of, for anybody unfamiliar, if you're new, just kind of getting into it, essentially right now at the moment, every 10 minutes, roughly, 12 and a half new Bitcoins are created or mined. And then more often than not sold onto the open market. So there's this steady influx of new coins being sold on the market. And that number gets cut in half around every 4 years. And so the next time that is slated to happen will be in the year 2020. And the last time it happened was 2016 and 2012. So it's every 4 years. So looking back at the past, at what has happened before, obviously you can't always say that history will for sure repeat itself. there are other variables at play. But from your perspective, how do you think the halving plays into market sentiment and supply and demand after the fact, and how quickly are its effects felt? Do you have any feelings about this? Any ideas?
Yeah, I do. And one thing that always struck me as funny is how, especially before, as we go into the future, it'll be less noticeable, but before, how abrupt of a change that is, rather than like slowly scaling back throughout the course of that 4-year period. Just all of a sudden cut in half kind of seems like an abrupt thing to do to a market. But the more I start to understand Bitcoin and what's really going on and how it was designed, some of it maybe even by accident, it's really brilliant how so many things are built into it to kind of keep it alive and keep it going. Because even if this bear market extends into next year, next thing you know, it's the middle of 2019, and every crypto YouTube channel and Twitter is going to be talking about the halvings next year, the halvings next year. And that's going to, I think, reinvigorate the markets if they haven't been already. And so in my mind, I would think that people are going to start accumulating in hopes of that early. So I don't think it'll be like everyone's going to wait until 2020 to start accumulating on their crypto. I think a lot of smart people are going to get in sooner. And I think a lot of smart people are accumulating now on the low because they know that's going to happen next year. But then, of course, you'll have the laggards in 2020 when, maybe CNBC starts talking about it and it hits the news, and then you'll have even more FOMO into it. So I think that'll play, obviously a big part of it, but I think its effects are going to be felt a lot sooner than people realize. But yeah, it's kind of an abrupt change. So like, it's probably going to have a big effect on it in the middle of 2020. So now going beyond that, I don't really know, as the supply begins to grow and as the new Bitcoin being mined begins to shrink, intuitively, I would think that it would diminish the effect that the halvings have, but that's just a wild guess from me.
Yeah. I think the halving will continue to have a major effect on Bitcoin, and to the extent that it continues to exist, the cryptocurrency ecosystem as a whole, just until it's common knowledge how it works. Because most people that got in the last year and a half don't even know what a halving is. They don't know the issuance rates. They don't know. A lot of people buying last year, as I was working OTC, didn't even know what the coin limits were, like as far as how many will be issued, or if the coin they were buying even had a limit on issuance. And so the amount of research that people did into this was absolutely minimal. And so you had people investing in things that they did not understand, which is the perfect, the perfect storm when it comes to irrational markets. And I think people may not have realized it, but the halving, I think, had a big effect on 2017, like may have probably, in my head, been the cause of it, because people didn't realize what it was. And when the halving happens, it's not like all of a sudden there's way less liquidity. At the exact moment when the halving happens, liquidity is exactly the same, because all of everything that's on the exchanges are still there. Everything is still being, it's gradual. It's just all of a sudden the drip, it gets turned down a little bit. So there's less of a flow into the market that the market was expecting to be there. So it takes a little while for that reduced influx of new coins to actually take hold of the market, and for people to realize like, hey, why is it harder for me to get my hands on Bitcoin? And I can only imagine what's going to happen next time around. Again, like in my experience talking to people, most people that are new to crypto have no idea about the halving or when it's going to be, if they do know about it. And so I think long term, especially with so few people on the planet even owning any form of cryptocurrency, I think that, halving 2020 and in the year following. There's going to be a lot of people surprised that it's hard to get as much Bitcoin as they want at the prices they want. So it could be a hell of an interesting year following that. I do think there will be some anticipation that you were alluding to as well. And I think, again, the smart people that have been around for a while, or at least have studied the history of what's happened so far, are probably accumulating. And there's usually a little bit of excitement prior to the halving, where that you get that FOMO in just before it happens. But I guess we'll see. I mean, it sounds like you're going to be here for it. You're going to stick around.
Absolutely. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I might be guilty of being a little grateful that the prices are still low, because I always feel like I need more crypto. So
yeah, it's if the Bitcoin experiment is successful and it becomes this monetization event, and it starts to be more widely used and more widely held, and the demand continues to be on the general trajectory that it's been over the past 10 years, then these bear markets, these pullbacks, these slow, when the market is flat or when it drops, these are massive opportunities if it ends up working. And for myself, obviously, I'm still here. So obviously I've people can see pretty plainly where I've placed my bets and what I think the outcome will be. But I mean, 2014, 2015 was a great opportunity for a lot of people, as was the time between 2011 and 2013. And there's a lot of these opportunities where people start saying something's dead. But if you do your research, you can really actually pull that statement apart and understand if it is or not.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, there's a big difference between, like, a lot of people now are in it just for speculation, but between that and use case, like, it really, if you're going to use it as cash and as a new money, it doesn't really matter what the price is. You know what I mean? It matters maybe for your portfolio, but if that's the end goal, which I think so many people are trying to get it to that point, I don't think it certainly helps that we're not all broke eating ramen noodle, but it doesn't quite matter for the end result. So.
I love myself some ramen here and there.
Yeah, I actually do really like it.
I tweeted something a day ago, 2 days ago, something like that, and it was something along the lines of, if Bitcoin hits $100,000 by the year 2021, I think I said that I'd fly around the globe high-fiving anybody that liked this post and stuck out the bear market unfazed.
Yeah,
I saw that. I'm looking at it now, and I'm looking at the engagement on it, and it's been seen by like 70,000 people. I've got like 200 some odd responses of people telling me where on the globe I'm going to need to fly to. So I'm like, oh God, what have I done? But hey, if Bitcoin hits 100K in 2021, then I'm more than happy to go around and try and high five as many people as possible. So hopefully we can high five too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I saw that tweet. I think that'd make a pretty good montage, just high fiving everyone around the globe.
Yeah, they'll be unwittingly doxing themselves in the process, but hey, that's awesome. So do you have any like closing remarks for people that, I guess, on both sides of the fence, people that are sitting here going, I'm fine, or people that are sitting here going, panic, sell it all, get out? Do you have any final, I mean, just from your perspective, any final thoughts?
In a short summary, emotions don't ever go well with money. So stop doing that. But that's a hard thing to do. I mean, my thing is always, when you're investing, come up with a plan, come up with parameters when you're getting in, when you're getting out, and stick to that. And if it meets those parameters when you're getting out, then if it's your plans, by all means, get out. But changing things at the last minute is not always a good idea. So I would just encourage everyone to, if you haven't truly done a lot of research into what this whole cryptocurrency thing is, really get to understand it, and then make a decision with what you want to do with your money and where you think it's going from there. So, it's so much more than just a numbers or a money game. You have to assess what's actually going on. So that would be my best advice. And then just a little thing is, I wouldn't underestimate institutional FOMO. That's just something that, I've been thinking on. People, kind of think of these sophisticated hedge funds and all that, but that's not what all of the institutional investors are. It's your Hernando County Pension Fund. It's, there's a lot of little institutions that are going to FOMO in just as hard if it starts to come back. So, yeah, awesome. Those would be my best thoughts for the markets right now.
Great. Now, where can people find you on Twitter? Like, what's your Twitter handle? If you want people to come.
Yeah, for sure. As long as they're polite, or actually it doesn't really matter. But on Twitter, it's John_C_crypto. All the good names were taken there. But on Instagram, it's just Crypto Constantine. So Twitter and Instagram are the main places you can find me.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for coming to chat. I'm glad we got to sit down, talk about price insanity, and I hope you'll come back on sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Hit John up on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you guys next time.